Hi everyone and welcome to the second lesson of B3 Infection and Response. Today's lesson is on human defence and vaccinations. As with all the other lessons, you'll need a pen and some paper, so if you don't have them in front of you, please pause the video and go and find one now. So today's challenge is to describe how our body defends itself against pathogens, and the aspire is to explain how vaccination works and how herd immunity occurs. Okay, so last lesson you learnt about bacteria, fungi, virus and protists. So a quick recap from last lesson: how do bacteria and viruses make us feel ill? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down your ideas. Off you go. Okay guys, so hopefully you've got written down that bacteria reproduce rapidly inside our body and they produce something called a toxin, and viruses replicate inside our cells and burst out of them, causing cell damage. So the first task today is I would like you to write me down what features you think our bodies have that stop pathogens from getting inside of us. There are some pictures below that will help you maybe identify some of them. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down what you think these features are. Off you go. So the answers that you should have written down, guys, to the question of what features do our bodies have which stop pathogens from getting inside of us. The two that you might have recognised from the photo, the first one is our stomach, and that has in it acid, which helps kill pathogens. We then have our skin, and that acts as a barrier. Obviously, if you get a cut, a scab forms to protect you from any pathogens getting in. Our eyes produce tears, which contain enzymes, which can help destroy pathogens. Our nose has hairs and sticky mucus inside it, which trap pathogens. And our trachea, which is our windpipe, has little hairs inside it called cilia and mucus in it that traps pathogens and helps them to sweep them up towards our throat so that we can swallow them into our stomach. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now, guys, is I'd like you to write down what you think would happen if pathogens get past these defense systems that we've just spoke about. So what would happen, for example, if they got past the stomach acid in the stomach, or what would happen if they got through our skin. So I'd like you to write down your ideas. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Off you go. Okay, guys, so hopefully you got written down that if the pathogens get past these defense systems, that they will cause an infection within our bodies. And then it's up to the immune system to then respond. And the white blood cells then will be involved in our bodies to try and destroy the pathogens that are there. So there are 3 types of white blood cells that you need to know for your GCSE science exam that help to defend our bodies against pathogens. The first one that you need to know about is a white blood cell that engulfs pathogens and digests them using enzymes. And this is called phagocytosis. The next one is a white blood cell that produces antitoxins. From last lesson, you'll probably remember that bacteria produce toxins, and that is what they release, and these antitoxins actually counteract or neutralize the toxins that the bacteria produce. And the last one is a white blood cell that produces antibodies, and these actually destroy just a particular pathogen. If you look at the diagram in the top right hand corner, you can see that on the surface of a pathogen is an antigen, and an antigen has a specific shape. And these white blood cells actually produce antibodies that are able to specifically lock onto that certain shape on the surface of the pathogen. This then causes the pathogens to clump together so that then they can be easily engulfed. So the next task that I would like you to do, guys, is I'd like you to describe what this graph shows. As you can see, there is a virus attacking the body for the first and the second time. The graph is showing as time is going on in days and the amount of antibodies that is being made. So I would like you to look at the graph and I would like you to describe what this graph is showing. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this. Off you go. Okay guys, so hopefully you've recognised that this is a graph of natural immunity, and when the body is invaded by a pathogen, it recognises it as a foreign object and it takes time for the body to produce antibodies. So the antibody levels start to rise at probably about day 8, and they then combat the infection, and then the level of antibodies then starts to decrease inside the body. If you look at the graph though, you'll see that the antibody level never goes back down to 0 because there will always be some memory cells that will remain inside your bloodstream. Then at the point that you are infected again with the same virus, your body recognises it because there are still some memory cells left and they will respond to this virus much more quickly, and the white blood cells will produce lots more antibodies much more quickly than they would have done the first time around. So it helps fight off the infection much more quicker. So now we need to move on and talk about vaccinations. Vaccinations are probably something that you are very familiar with because you've had lots of them already in your life, and they create immunity without making us poorly. And there are 2 types of vaccines that you need to know about. The first type, you will either be injected with a dead or inactive pathogen, or it may be a live pathogen but very weakened, and all of them carry antigens. So what happens when you are injected with them is your white blood cells will respond to the vaccine as if it was a disease, by creating antibodies. Now, if you remember, the antibodies will recognize the antigen on the surface of the pathogen, and the antibodies will be made to actually lock onto that certain shape. And then after the infection, some memory cells will remain inside our bodies. And then if the live pathogens of the same type reappear again, then the white blood cells can rapidly mass produce the antibodies to kill off the pathogen, and this prevents the infection. An example of a vaccine that you might be familiar with is the MMR vaccine. So I'm going to give you 20 seconds to write down what you think the abbreviation MMR stands for. So 20 seconds, off you go. So guys, the question was, what does the abbreviation MMR stand for? The abbreviation MMR stands for measles, mumps and rubella. If you cast your minds back to last lesson where you have to learn about certain viruses, measles is one of the viruses that you need to recognize and know symptoms of and how to treat for your exam. And obviously a way that we can actually stop measles is actually by vaccination. So we can vaccinate it through the MMR vaccine program. So guys, just a quick recap for this because it's really important that you actually understand what a vaccine is and this process for your exam. So a vaccine is a dead or inactive pathogen carrying antigens on the surface or either a live weakened form of a pathogen. It's injected into the body and the immune system starts to respond. So the white blood cells that produce antibodies start to attack the pathogen, so they lock onto the antigens on the surface. The pathogen is then destroyed, but the body now has memory cells that will remain inside your bloodstream. So if in the future the same pathogen attacks the body, it can produce lots of antibodies and to attack it and destroy it very quickly. So I'd now like you to write me down, guys, if you can think of any possible advantages or disadvantages of having a vaccination. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to write me these down. Off you go. Okay, guys, so the question was, can you think of any advantages or disadvantages of vaccinations? Hopefully, the advantages that you have got written down is that they reduce the spread of a disease. They reduce the risk of having epidemics or pandemics, such as the coronavirus. It allows those at risk to be protected, and it's cheaper than actually treating the illnesses in hospitals or through drugs through your GP. Possible side effects, though, is a negative to any vaccination. Some people have major fears of injections. They are costly to produce by pharmaceutical companies, and sometimes they do not always work. So the last thing that I need to talk to you about today, guys, is something called herd immunity. Now, there will be a proportion of people in our society that may not be able to have a vaccination because they are not strong enough to fight the vaccination. And that could be for one reason or another. It might be that they are having cancer treatment, or it might be that they have a disease such as HIV. So these people are protected from infection by other people in the community being vaccinated so that the diseases doesn't spread as far. And this is called herd immunity. Now, the spread of pathogens can be reduced by immunising a large proportion of the population. So the NHS will run a vaccination programme that starts when you're a baby, and it carries through until you're in your teenage years. So it's very important that everybody in the country actually gets vaccinated to prevent people that can't be vaccinated for one thing or another to stop them from getting the disease. So guys, my question to you now, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down your answer. I would like you to tell me what herd immunity is. So 2 minutes, off you go. Okay guys, so the question was, what is herd immunity? And hopefully you have written down, this is where some people in our society can't be vaccinated against a specific disease, and you may have written down that that might be for a reason such as they're having cancer treatment, or they might be infected with HIV. So they rely on being protected from an infection by other people in their communities being vaccinated so the diseases don't spread as far. So the summary for today's lesson, and I would like you to write these notes down so you have a record of what we've learned in today's lesson, that the skin on our body acts as a barrier to pathogens and stops them from getting inside us. Our stomach produces acid to kill pathogens. Our nose contains hair and sticky mucus to trap pathogens. Our trachea has mucus and hairs called cilia to trap and sweep away pathogens. If pathogens get into our bloodstream, they will trigger an immune response, and white blood cells will try and destroy them by either engulfing them, producing antibodies and producing antitoxins. Vaccines contain dead, inactive, or weakened pathogens with antigens on them, and this triggers an immune response. And white blood cells produce antibodies, and in the future, if you are reinfected, more antibodies are made very quickly to prevent infection. And herd immunity occurs when a large percentage of a population has become immune to an infection, whether through a vaccine or previous infections, therefore providing a level of protection for vulnerable individuals. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes, guys, to write me down this list of summary notes. If you need any extra time, please then pause the video and complete the summary notes. Thank you. Bye.